Remember the joy of Creation Reborn? Yeah, people loved it. So much that everyone started to think of making a free roam game of their own. And the genre of free roam FNaF games began. Loads of games have been made ever since. Some of them are really fun. Some have very competent graphics. And some of the others...
Every day to be exactly the same. Ben texted me yesterday. He's at Myrtle Beach having an awesome time. He wanted to know what I was doing, and I told him I was going to the library and Jeff's Pizza every day. And you know what he texted me back? I'm sorry, and that place is creepy.
Yeah, let's talk about them. Regardless of how good you are as a developer, one thing is for certain. Game development is always hard. There are so many things to build and keep track of, and just as you think you're done, you drown in a wave of new problems. And on top of all that, you need to make the game good. Making good 2D games is already a hell of a challenge, so by adding a third dimension to the game, you also add a third dimension to the problems. And that leads to the first problem with free roam FNaF games. Their developers are not ready to make 3D games. If the insane optimization issues, crazy collision detection, terrible visuals, bugs, and the underwhelming gameplay weren't enough to convince you that these developers should start smaller, then you should consider how little work some of them put in their game in the first place. You may start to feel deja vu as you play these games because of the many familiar assets like the 3D models, sound effects, UI, and other functionalities. And it's not for no reason. Most of them are stock assets. A lot of the 3D models and features come from asset stores like Fab. The animations come from Mixamo, and the rest is done using step-by-step make an Unreal game in 10 minutes tutorials on YouTube. One of the reasons that this was a glaring issue among free roam fan games is how well these games used to perform regardless of their quality. More on that soon. Making 3D games is not easy, let alone a good one. There are so many things that you have to learn and then put them all together well, whereas some of the more notable free roam fan game developers just reuse the same stock assets to release a game every few months. If you're new to game development, then you should reconsider making a 3D game. It's a much better idea to make 2D games first, where you learn the foundations of designing and programming games before tackling more complex problems in a 3D space. Now this doesn't apply to everyone, because some people are actually decent at making 3D games, especially nowadays, and some just want to have fun putting Fredbear in a restaurant and watching him walk. Hold on. Yet for a long time, you could get away with not trying at all and still get decently popular. Why? Good question. Unless you're new to the FNaF community, you may remember the golden age of UE4 Fredbear Fangames with the same gameplay, visuals, theme, same everything, to the point that even Doggo had to joke about it in one of his titles. The trend wasn't limited to Fredbear games though. Back then, free roam games in general had a sudden surge in popularity and all of the mainstream YouTubers were playing them, the most notable being Fusion Z Gamer. If his long list of free roam game videos didn't make this clear to you, then the games themselves will. A lot of the notable fangames played throughout this video had the profile picture of various YouTubers as posters in the map, the absolute minimum of it being a Fusion poster. You may recognize such elements as YouTuber bait, and that's what many of these fangames were, a YouTuber bait.
That's so neat. Oh, let me just really take in this image. Let me just...
This shows that they were not about being fun or pleasing players, but making sure that the YouTubers play them instead. Sometimes people made a free roam game just so a YouTuber plays it. The time they could spend adding another prop or actual poster to the environment was wasted for adding Fusion to the map. Somehow we don't have a game where you collect Fusion posters yet. Free roam games have improved immensely in the past few years because YouTubers stopped playing every single one of them, and therefore the developers have to make better games in order to be noticed now. I should once again remind you that some games are made for fun and don't make much of a fuss about YouTubers, so they're not concerned about the public reception. Just know that this doesn't apply to all of them. Think you can tell which ones I'm talking about. The developer has enough experience with the engine. They're not on their knees in front of Fusion begging him to play their game while claiming that no, I'm making my games with passion. They are able to make a 3D game, but the games is still not great. When you make a FNaF game free roam, you erase the core parts of the game, which is the since and survive, point and click nature of them. So essentially you're starting from scratch. You would think that making the player be able to move compensates for that, right? Not to say free roam fan games can't work, because some of them already have, but the majority of these games share the exact same problem, which is that they don't justify being free roam in the first place. We have free roam games since the 90s. It's not a fresh milestone for the industry. It's working. I can do it in real life too. Clearly, it's not just movement on its own that makes a game fun. The reason the genre had become popular to begin with was that it was new and people were enticed by the idea of roaming around in the locations that they always had to explore only through cameras. That doesn't mean you can get away with importing the FNaF 1 map into Unity and calling it a day. People had to enjoy the official FNaF games before they could be attached and interested in exploring the universe. Yet so many of these games deliver nothing more than just walking among animatronics. No matter how much you polish the programming and visuals of them, it doesn't help the case of the gameplay feeling meaningless. The development of these games starts with the idea of running from animatronics and ends right there. It's like making a first-person shooter and your selling point for the game is shooting in first person. You have to pull twists, give the player some context for what they're doing and why, and give them a goal to pursue instead of just saying stay here for 6 minutes. If you were to look at some of the better free-roam fan games such as the Glitched Attraction, you would see that they aim for more than just walking. You've got puzzles to solve, animatronics to monitor or hide from, stealth, pretty much whatever that makes the gameplay feel like it has a purpose. These fan games show that making good free-roam games isn't impossible if you can be bothered to at least try. None of these people are brewing a spell to make good games. All they do is approach their projects with better goals and ideas, and spend less time pinning fusion to every wall of the map. And now, we reach the best part, the answer to how you can make your free-roam games better. Maybe you're an aspiring, if not already a free-roam game developer. Do you want to know how you can make your game better and more complete? First off, give players proper goals. Surviving until 6 AM doesn't cut it. Sure, you have a goal, but does it give you a reason to walk? Why not just sit in the office watching cameras or doing literally nothing? If your game is free roam, then you should include objectives that make players move. Moving from point A to point B may not be very fun, but sitting in a corner for 6 minutes is even worse. Give your players some tasks, or opt for a linear path instead of running in circles in a dining area. Speaking of running in circles, the next thing to address is how repetitive free roam fan games can be. What you do in a lot of them is encounter an animatronic, run away, repeat until it's 6 AM. Please enjoy! Again, you're better off opting for a linear progression so you can secure a little more variety, but you have to make sure that the core parts of the game, such as the chases, don't become stale too quickly. Having too many chases can lower the impact and tension of them drastically too. That's one more thing to keep in mind. To support good chase sequences, you need a functioning and well-rounded AI as well. This is not something that everyone can pull off, exactly why I said not everyone is ready to make such games. In many of the games that I played, the enemy behavior had issues that were clearly a sign of the developers not understanding how they even work. Many of them watching this video don't even know about finite state machines, so that might be a good starting point for you in order to learn how to program more fleshed out AI. Once you have a properly working enemy, you need to put them in the right playground. That's where level design comes in. Do not use the map layout of the original FNaF games. You never moved out of the office in them, and therefore how the player or the enemies walk in the environment were not a concern while designing their layout. You don't want rooms that are merely dead ends like the backstage in FNaF 1. The rooms should be connected to each other so that the chases are more continuous. You also have to be pretty careful with the set tracing of the environment. It's not a good idea to put too many objects like tables and chairs in the middle of the rooms. The reason for that is while running in the game, you're very likely to keep colliding with these objects, and if they don't get you killed, they are guaranteed to disrupt the flow of the movement and cause irritation. After you take care of all that, you should make sure that the game doesn't look like shit. Every game aims for a different aesthetic and art style, but some things are clear for almost all of them. You don't want a 500-meter wide room with only 3 objects. You don't want the same few objects copy-pasted in every corner of the map. You also don't want the map to be so dark that you can't see anything. Talking about how you can make your game look better is way beyond this video's scope, so maybe try to do your own research on set tracing, lighting, post-processing, you name the rest. But a gorgeous game is only half the road. You also have to optimize it so the players cherish the visuals for more than 10 frames per second. Having detailed visuals is nice, but a game with a low frame rate feels very sluggish to play, and that's maybe enough to make the player quit. Optimization is a very complex topic, so if you're not ready to delve deep and understand it all, then you're not ready to make 3D games. One bonus advice is to stop making dogshit cameras. I'm talking about the cameras with intense smoothing or movement animations that can feel very disorienting and cause motion sickness. Motion sickness is another complex topic that I highly recommend doing your own research on. But for now, keep the movement and rotation of the camera to the minimum, or if you want to keep these abhorrent animations, then add an option for people to toggle them. Even though there are many other things that I could point at, these are the first and most common problems in fan games that you should take care of before you move on to addressing other problems. If you actually listen and do these things, then you are well on your way to make a fleshed out game where players may actually have fun getting chased by Fredbear for 2 hours. This video is not meant to discourage anyone from making free-roam fan games. All I'm saying is that if you're going to make one, you might as well make it fun. Consider how prepared you are to make a free-roam game before you proceed, because just like adding a third dimension to the game can add a third dimension to the challenges, it can also add a third dimension to the game's, well, shittiness. Even then, it's no crime to make a bad game. After all, in order to learn how to make a good game, you first have to learn what is bad so that you avoid them in your future games. Just make sure that you learn from your mistakes. If all of this seems like too much effort to you, it's fine, just make a smaller game. Not all good games have to be big. But if you insist, then there is always one idea in particular that you can bring to life where you don't need to spend as much time and effort and still probably do well. So it might be the perfect idea for you. So as I finish this video, I proudly present to you Five Nights at Fusion Z Gamer. Thanks for watching.